All right, welcome to the Strength Solutions Podcast. Today, we have an amazing episode, but before that, check us out on Apple and Spotify. You can rate and review us. Then we also have a YouTube channel. Please subscribe. We got some really good comments lately. Then, if you're looking for a website, it's ssempowered.com. We have free blogs, free guides, FREE, guys, free.
Sin gratis.
And we have programs for their own purchase, which a future podcast, you'll see Ethan talk about running one of our programs. Also, our email is strengthsolutionsempowered@gmail.com. We are taking fitness questions, so feel free. Then, if you're looking for us on social media, Facebook is Strength Solutions. TikTok is strength.solutions.pod. Probably getting banned here in a little bit. Then we have Instagram, Strength Solutions Empowered. I'm Strength Solutions Edwin.
I'm Strength Solutions Nathaniel.
Okay, dude. I got this amazing topic.
Yeah, what's up?
I was listening to a podcast. Very intelligent woman.
Okay.
Her name's Rhonda Patrick.
Is she like the blonde lady that I've been seeing a lot?
No, she's not blonde. She's a brunette.
Okay.
She was all about the sauna and stuff like that before. Who's the blonde lady that you seen all the time?
I think she's in more like mental health podcasts. I see her a lot. I'll get her name and I'll tell you who it is. Because she's been.
Can you give me the cup size? Because then I can. No,
it's like melon, cantaloupe.
Are we talking about like A, B, C?
You're like, oh, that. Yeah.
Oh, that one. No. God, I'm such a guy. All right, it must be the testosterone.
Yeah,
blame it on that.
Yeah.
So I'm listening to this podcast, and like she's giving all these things to do, and she's a fitness influencer in a like science way, right? Like Peter Tia, Huberman.
Okay.
And I love these people, right? But I also feel they're the worst for you, the consumer. The reason being is they don't literally take behavior into the equation.
Yeah.
So I'm here to tell you right now, guys, you need to stop listening to fitness influencers. Start living your life.
Yeah, it really is like so important on the nuance of like what's for you, what's not. Like just today, one of my friends texted me and was like, hey, like what is the best way to eat breakfast? Like, should I be having breakfast before work or not? He was like, on days that I work, I just like don't eat it. You know, like, does it have to do, he was like asking me like if it does like with your circadian rhythm and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, me personally, my first meal of the day is like at 2 or 3 o'clock sometimes. Like I don't eat breakfast. Yeah. And I was like, that's just me. You know, like what works best for me. When I eat, I feel like I slow down. Like I'm immediately like I'm ready for bed, you know, or just like, I guess puts me in that sort of comfort zone, you know, and then I'm like done with work and I don't want to do it anymore. And I was like, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what's going to happen is that it's going to depend on what works best for you. Like, can you wake up early enough and eat breakfast? Cool. Or your goals. I was like, if you're trying to cut weight, then yeah, not having an entire meal is probably going to help, you know, only if you don't increase the amount of calories in your other meals, right? Like throughout the day. Yeah. But yeah, just like, you know, there's too many people who are like, oh, it's breakfast is the most important, you know, and then it's something else entirely.
Dude, you should send them a text and say, the best breakfast to have is a bunch of sausages in your mouth.
I should have just said that.
Dude.
It just blocked him.
Yeah. He's like eating sausages every day. You said this is your breakfast.
He said.
So, dude, if you actually did what a lot of these very intelligent people told you to do, it'd be way too many calories. They tell you to get this much protein, this much like fruits and vegetables. You have to get these. You'll be fucking bloated just like walking around, right? So like in the podcast I was listening to, she's like, yeah, you want to get about 2 cups of blueberries a day for all these properties of it. And I'm just thinking to myself like, that's a fucking lot.
Yeah.
And she's like, I do it all the time. I'm like, great for you, but not everybody's life revolves around that. And then what if blueberries are more poisonous to somebody than some other food?
Yeah, I think the thing is too that like, I mean, at the end of the day, what am I supposed to do? Eat all day, you know, every single...
And work out?
Yeah.
Do
like
the sauna, ice bath?
We don't have the time for that. You know, like my life doesn't revolve, unfortunately, around my health. You know what I mean? Like there's other things that go on into it. Or I guess I could say it revolves around it, right? But it's not always possible to get every single thing done all the time. And I think that's...
You're not doing enough, bro. You're not doing enough.
Yeah, I just got to work harder. And it is one of those things, though. I feel like it perpetuates this idea of like, you're not trying hard enough. I do it all the time. I eat 2 cups of blueberries every day. Like, well, I'm just like you. And it's like, no, you're not just like me. Your whole job is about being healthy and making podcasts. You know what I mean? If I had that kind of time, then I would probably do it also. Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. Some of the things they recommend,
So yeah. And they got to understand like their life revolves around studying these compounds, studying these things on such a detailed manner.
Right.
And I was thinking about this today because I was like, when I meet with doctors and stuff like that, they start talking to you in this like language, right? Let's say I'm talking about like the patella.
Okay.
How many people actually know what the patella is?
Yeah. Immediately everybody's like, what is that?
It's just your fucking kneecap, right?
Yeah.
And it's saying things and doing things like a doctor. I get it. You're very intelligent. I'm not doubting your intelligence, but you got to communicate with people. And then when we communicate with everyday people, we have to simplify things. So I don't say like, what's your femur length versus your tibia and fibula length, right?
Yeah.
I say, okay, what's from your knee to ankle and knee to hip ratio?
Yeah. Or upper leg and lower leg, right? Like just something
like that. So that way, when I'm talking about that and I say, well, maybe if you have a longer like upper leg, you're going to have to hinge a little bit more in your squat, right? And if you have a bigger lower leg, you might be a little bit more vertical in your squat, and versus naming all these things and being extreme, right?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we all communicate with the general population, right? I don't communicate with other trainers, near as much as I communicate with regular people, and doctors too. Your whole job is helping regular people, not other doctors, unless you're in research or something like that, right? Like that's a different realm. But my job is, the guy that goes to the grocery store, has 3 kids and, and they're not worried about what the hell the patella is, And in fact, I think that if you talk like that to people, it kind of puts them off. You know what I mean? I mean, some people might be inquisitive and what's that? What is this? Or want to understand. But I have like maybe 2-3 clients who are doctors, nurses, and I can talk like that with. The rest of them, I don't even want to do that. You know what I mean? It has no point.
Yeah, it's like talking to your financial advisor and they're like, yeah, just put it in this index fund. It gets about 9%.
Yeah.
What the fuck does that mean?
What are you talking
about? Right?
About?
That's like a foreign language. Like, you got to tell me exactly what is the index fund? How does it work? You got to like basically describe it, or
you got to explain like I'm 5,
or why you should buy a car versus lease a car. You can't just say, go do this. You got to tell the why behind it. You got to simplify it and make it much easier for people.
Yeah.
And then the next thing in this journey, I was thinking like, she's saying this 2 cups of blueberries. I'm bringing this because it's the one that sticks out of my head.
Okay.
But we don't talk about when we listen to these podcasts, and I think Huberman did one, and I think this guy attacked Huberman for the tibialis raises, I think it was.
Oh, I saw this.
Right? Yeah. And he goes after Huberman wasn't wrong, but there's a lot of independent variables and very individualized for people.
Yeah.
So I'll get someone who has back pain, and it could be their foot, it could be their hip, it could be their thoracic spine, it could be their shoulder, and they all have same symptom of lower back pain. It just shows you how individualized everything is, even from a behavior or stress resilience, which I heard from a doctor the other day.
Stress resilience, interesting.
Versus stress management concept is everything becomes individualized at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I don't think we don't really do a good job telling people, hey, I need you to think for yourself real quick. What do you think here? How'd you feel? It's funny because I'll get new clients and I'm asking them what they feel. And they're like, I can't feel anything. I don't know what you want me to feel. I was like, just describe what you feel. Like,
just tell me.
Become one with yourself.
Yeah.
It's funny. It takes a little while as a process for it.
I noticed that too whenever I ask people like, okay, so where do you feel this exercise? And their first response to me is always, where am I supposed to feel it?
Yep.
Yeah. And I go,
you're supposed to feel it in your penis.
Yeah. Like, I'd say something dumb and they're going to be like, oh, well, but it's like, that's one of those things. And I think that sometimes people, and I notice this in like my kid and stuff like that too, where they're more concerned with having the right answer, than just being able to talk.
Preach, Nathaniel, preach.
Yeah. And I think it comes from all the way from when we were in school, right? I mean, only the people that had the right answers got praised. If you asked a question or were inquisitive or curious or had a different answer, you were immediately told like, no, that's wrong. You know what I mean? And so you just kind of perpetuates as we go on. But yeah, so it's funny how nuanced it all is, and how we just try and kind of bring it to something small.
Yeah. And then the thing I think fitness influencers are very high, whether they show their body that or that person, or they literally tell you what to do, or they're very intelligent like Huberman, Attia, and all them.
Yeah.
The number one thing they don't talk about in the behavior concept, right, is the ability to be consistent. And that is probably a majority of what you're going to get the most bang for your buck.
Yeah.
You could have the shittiest program.
Yeah.
Eat consistently, sleep consistently, and still get better results than someone who has a perfect program, but does not sleep consistently, does not eat consistently.
Yeah.
And still be in a better position. Consistency matters at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen people get results, doing some weird programming, and you're like, generally this probably wouldn't work for a lot of people because they're not consistent, right? But if I'm going to the gym, it doesn't really matter what exercise I'm doing. If I'm doing it consistently, if I'm doing it properly, I'm going to progress on it, and that's going to elicit some sort of progress in my body as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And the last thing is, or not last thing, I should say the last thing. The next thing is, it depends. If you don't hear and I don't think a lot of times, sometimes they'll do it like very highly educated people like humor, but a lot of times I think they're doing a podcast to prove a point or to say something.
Yeah.
And you got to like, with the highly educated, you got to really put like, it depends as like, they already know it depends, but they're trying to give you where the research is headed, where there's a lot of trainers and other people, they don't use the word it depends because they think they know the answer and it's right. And there's a lot of factors as you become more and more experienced that it really depends.
Yeah, and I was going to add that on to what you said earlier too, is that I think that we don't do, as the people talking, do a good job of like prefacing things by saying, well, it depends, but they've shown that tibialis raises help with knee pain, right? Or something like that. Because again, if you're familiar with this person, like you said, we're well aware that they probably understand this, right?
Yeah.
But it's also easy to just like, I didn't
Clickbait.
I didn't go back and watch the podcast that he was on. So I don't even know if the guy that was like talking about it or reacting to it or whatever, just clipped that out in the front. You know what I mean? He may have said that or had this whole talk about how there's a million other things. And then they went into this topic of this is the newest research, right? And it's just easy for me to go, oh, look at him, he's doing this. And then, everybody's like, oh, what the hell? Like, cause I'm watching him and I'm like, I know this guy probably wasn't sitting there and being like, this is the answer, this is it. But that's the way that it was kind of being played off. And it just kind of sucks,
Yeah. And then another thing is if you're a fitness influencer, I said it earlier, is just showing their body off.
Oh yeah.
And they're constantly just like, oh, I'm ripped or whatever. Blah, blah, blah.
BioLane just did like a whole post about V-Shred. You know who V-Shred is? Yeah. And he just like, of course, he just tears into everybody. He's not very nice.
Because V-Shred has gone from keto to this diet and just like jumping. Yeah. And he looks amazing.
And I've seen V-Shred. I mean, this guy's been around for a long time.
Yeah. I can't believe people still fall for his shit.
I remember seeing him when I would like watch like Athlete X and stuff like that. And I mean, even Athlete X would talk shit about V-Shred. Like he's kind of a guy that has been, I don't want to say laughed at a lot, but
within the health space,
been a target of a lot of things, And I get it, because I think that at the beginning, literally his whole thing was like he was shredded. You know what I mean? That was it. And I think that Athlete X kind of came out as the opposite, where he was also super shredded, but had like this whole, like, I'm a scientist, like I'm doing it differently thing. And well,
actually, the anterior tibialis is responsible for,
but yeah, so it there's a lot going on and all these people saying certain things, or, I mean, you're talking about being consistent, but, and in context, like these people aren't even consistent in what they say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A lot of them are, I'm all about this now, and now I'm all about this. And okay, well, was the other thing wrong then? Or, they never even address that.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, what's the next thing?
And to address that a little bit further, there is being consistent, and then there's also being open to new data coming in.
Right. Yeah, that's different.
There's a difference. With V-Shred, he's constantly just, keto's popular, I jump on keto.
Yeah.
Paleo's popular, I'm going to jump on paleo.
And the thing is,
popular, right? He jumps from one to another.
And he can sell it because, well, look at his body.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, well, damn it, man.
What's crazy? The best coaches that I found online don't have the best bodies a lot of time.
Yeah.
There's really good coaches that I've found that do have bodies. Don't get me wrong. But like when you look at Squat University, you're just like, he's just a dude.
He just looks like some man.
And then BioLane looks great right now, but he didn't look crazy before.
Yeah.
Our buddy Joseph, he goes through phases, right? I think he just made a post the other day, and
He did
to kind of like prove a point.
Yeah.
I love that guy. I love his proving the point stuff. And then also, there's trainers that look really good and have no clue what they're doing. They just starve themselves.
Yeah, or they're just like genetically gifted and they just got there from doing whatever, you know. Like I was actually having a conversation about this the other day, and we were talking about how, you know, in the personal training space, it's very appearance based, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when people are looking for trainers and things like that. I get told a lot of the times that when someone goes in, you know, from like clients and stuff,
they all want Lou.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, they're looking for someone who has what they want to look like, you know? So I've heard like,
I've heard that too.
You know, if I'm trying to lose weight, then I'm going to find the skinniest trainer, you know, if I'm trying to get huge, then I'm going to find the biggest guy, you know, and that's who I want. And it doesn't always mean that they got there doing it, you know, or the way that they got there is the way that you're going to get there too. Yeah. In fact, I've seen super huge guys train people and I'm like, I know you don't train like that. I know you don't.
Oh,
you know?
I remember that one guy.
And it's like, why are you doing that? You know what I mean? How are you going to promise this person that one day they're going to look like you and they're slamming a medicine ball and doing box jumps? You know what I mean? I'm just like, what are we training for? You know, I don't know.
Speaking of looking good, dude. Yeah. Speaking of looking good, dude. Week 2 test, great results.
Yeah.
Bro, I feel like a new man.
How are you feeling?
Feel reborn. Dude, I just told you yesterday, remember I texted 175 on my Zercher? I could tell you I feel stronger.
So now, at this point, you've had like a full dose.
A full week
right?
dose.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like I just want to fuck Amanda.
He's about to get up right now.
I'm about to get up right now. Leave this podcast and let's go. But yeah, I feel a lot better. I can tell I feel stronger. I'm recovering better. I don't feel as sore.
Yeah.
And then I did the 175. I've never done 175 on Zercher squats. I always felt like my body broke down at this point. I remember telling you.
Oh, yeah, because you're doing a different phase, right? Yeah. And it's funny, too, because I was kind of hoping that you would run this because, famously, you know, I know that you've told me a million times that at some point during the program, you're just like, I can't continue. I just can't recover enough.
And this is about the point.
Yeah, I just can't recover enough to continue going, you know? And now you're telling me that you're doing more weight than you ever have in the same phase, you know? And so that's pretty insane.
My body feels tighter. My gut doesn't feel as like inflamed.
Okay.
I haven't changed how I'm eating. I haven't changed that much. The only thing that's changed is I'm consistent with my vitamins and I'm also consistent with that injection. Make sure.
Yeah.
And the only thing I will say, because I have gotten stronger, like today my knee feels a little loose, but I'm like, okay, maybe that's a sign to back off, because this is what a lot of people don't understand is when you're on testosterone. And I had a conversation from Don at Renew, and we're talking about how, yeah, you're gonna get stronger, but you might want to slow down because your muscles may get stronger, but it may take a little while for your joints and ligaments to kind of catch up.
Yeah, because those train differently than the muscle itself.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and so I think it's crazy. We had two opposite symptoms, but we needed the same thing.
Yeah, the same. The answer was the same, right?
Yeah. I know I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah.
How's life? What did you do this weekend? Anything cool?
Last week was spring break for my daughter, so we were at home a lot. We went to like a park at one point. My daughter spent some time with my mom, did some things, we watched a movie. So I haven't finished it, but I'm literally halfway through Ready Player One.
Oh, yeah. Talk about it next week.
Okay, yeah. I'll finish it and then we can talk about
dude,
it.
I love it. Okay.
I was like, Edwin will like this. Yeah. But honestly, bro, that is like all I did this weekend, man. Yeah. What about you?
Dude, so I've been watching movies. I found new things to watch. Watch Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
The new one?
Yes. With Danny Glover.
Okay, yeah. That's what I thought it was. Yeah. Is it good?
It's pretty good, yeah.
I've only seen the Angelina Jolie Brad Pitt version.
This one's not as serious. It has jokes to it.
Okay, interesting.
I think you actually might like it.
Cool.
And then watch the movie Hitch.
Oh yeah, you were telling me about that.
So I told you, I was like, dude, Hitch is just a microcosm of like actual like what dating is really like and how complex it is. Like, you know, at the end he finds out that like everything he told this guy that he didn't want him to do, like Albert Brenneman, right? That she loved it. But if that would have been another woman, like with, you know, inhaler, throwing it to the side, they probably wouldn't have loved it, but she loved it. And then she loved that she did insecurities. And I think we've made it so complex. We create these rules that make it seem like it's simple.
Yeah.
But it's actually very complex, and it's like a big game going back and forward.
The more that, because I do think relationships kind of are a game, right? Quote unquote. Sometimes like there's a sort of a way that things go, and I don't really want to call it a game, but I feel like that's just like part of human mating at the point, you know what I mean? Culturally, like that's just sort of how it goes. But yeah, I mean, as I've been in my relationship now, or just learned more about life in general, or hearing other people's relationships, I'm like, man, this shit is so hard. And it really is so person to person. You know, I think there's some things that kind of just stand above, right, as general rules or whatever it is. But it and situation to situation too, you know, like my relationship is completely different than someone else my
Mine's
age.
better than Nathaniel. So.
and there's just, and I think that it takes more about learning about the other person than it does about learning about relationships.
And yourself.
And yourself. Yeah. Like those are the two things that will actually make a relationship work. And so, you know, I know that there's books or you know, all these like alpha guy podcasts. Oh, like the other day I sent
you love that red pill, Myron. It was on the list, so you could go ahead and talk about it.
Okay, yeah. So I sent you something, and it was like a guy, I don't know who these people were, but he was interviewing two people who were on sort of,
it's a red pill podcast. His name's Myron, is the main guy. Okay. I can't remember what the podcast name is. And I thought it was the H3 podcast that they were I forgot what it's called.
I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, he's on there, and those guys are talking about marriage, right? And they were talking about how guys control like the gateway of commitment, and women control the gateway of like sex, right? And I agree. I think that that's pretty fair. Maybe in some ways, right?
I think because a lot of women are giving it up more, they don't control sex as much, right?
But you know, let's say one day they're all just like, nope, you know, then
like we're fucked as guys.
You know, so they do still have that control.
My wife holds the gatekeeper. So.
And then the guys are the ones who propose, right? So they control the commitment aspect of it, blah, 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 whatever. Anyway, the guy was talking about how like, if you're not married, you know, I guess, you know, you got to try harder, or there's a reason you're not married is because you know, there's something wrong with you or whatever it is. And the dude who was interviewing them was like, are either of you two married? And they were like, well, no. And he was like, well, how am I supposed to take advice from you if neither of you are married, you know? And of course they were like, well, it's because I have made the choice to be married or whatever. But it kind of begs the question of like taking advice from people who are unsuccessful, you know?
Yeah.
Like, what am I supposed to do?
And it's not that they're not unsuccessful. They probably could have married or whatever, but also it comes down to like, where are you finding these women? Because I think he calls them out on where they find the women, like on sugar daddy websites and stuff. Of course, you're not going to find someone like that, right? You're not going to find a person who wants
high value. But it's like, and it made me think about other things, honestly, where, you know, I've been given advice about relationships, or I've been given advice about whatever, you know, from like my parents or whoever it is. And I'm like, do I take relationship advice from someone who's like, you know, been in a million failed relationships, or who's been divorced, or, you know, and I'm just like, do you have the answer? You know, like I'll take it, and you just kind of, I guess, take bits and pieces of what is maybe applicable to your situation and what isn't.
Yeah.
But it's just that thing where I feel like everybody feels like they have the answer, you know, and they're right, and no one's open to options.
Yeah, and I have the answer. Have sex all the time.
I feel like eat a bunch of sausages. You know?
Just sausage in the mouth, sausage all day. All right. So also, it was the twins' birthday this past week.
Oh man, happy birthday!
So,
Yay!
Yeah, my daughter, we went Wednesday. Never been to Raising Cane's. Went there.
What?
I've never been.
Oh, okay, really?
Yeah.
Well, it's okay. So hold on, I gotta hear what you think. What do you think?
I had like a bite or two. It's okay.
It's okay. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not a caniac. Like,
You're not a caniac, dude.
Oh my god, I got it. Apparently, people like dunk that shit. In
They have like 4 options to eat.
Yeah, not happening, bro. But she loved it, so it was
cool.
her birthday.
Yeah.
We played arcades and stuff, and then for my sons, we went to a wing place.
Nice.
What's
like the wing place of choice for him?
He likes Wingstop.
Okay.
He likes Pluckers.
Yeah.
That's where we went. He just loves wings.
He just likes wings.
Bro, he's a wing guy.
Interesting. Yeah.
If you're flying out there, better watch out.
Yeah.
But I've cursed my children, dude.
Why? What do you think? Why?
They all have inner dialogue.
Okay.
So, you know, we had a whole conversation here on the couch talking about like inner dialogue. Like, does this happen to you? I'm like, oh my God. It's what happened to me.
Like, what do you explain it? Explain it. What do you mean?
So, I mean, dude, you know how I have inner dialogue all day?
Yeah.
And then I could be watching something and all of a sudden space out.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
You told me that. Like, you're like, how do they change the, this? And yeah.
So we were at Pluckers and we're sitting there and then we're having this conversation as a family. And then all of a sudden I see him like looking off and we're like, Christian. And he's just like in his own zone.
Hello. Yeah.
And I was like, there's the inner dialogue. Like,
he's thinking about something. Yeah.
So I was thinking like my goal, because I know what it's like to have inner dialogue in your head and always questioning yourself or doing this, is to turn it into a positive.
Yeah.
And teaching them how to like really think through things, and putting that into their head. Like, I look good. I'm great. I'm smart. I can work hard. I'll figure it out and I'll solve it out. But like I have this event tomorrow.
Yes.
Dude, I like literally was talking to myself in the car. I was like, I don't really want to do it. I'm tired, not like yada, yada, yada. And I was like, you know what? I just got to fucking suck it up and do it for the business. And then, okay, I'm going to go.
There's a lot to perspective. I was actually thinking about this the other day about how I feel like I've sort of, gotten way better at appreciating my physical appearance, And it's funny because I don't ever feel like I had a moment in time where I like hated myself or anything, but the positive thoughts I have now are nowhere near the way that they were in the past, and it's kind of like I think about it and I'm like, when did that shift happen? Like, what did I think about, or what changed, or whatever it is, I'm sure it had to do a lot with like lifting and working out and things like that.
Testosterone.
Yeah. Like all change that, or I don't know, just becoming more comfortable with who you are.
Do you think like it helped you to be more confident in your relationship?
I think it helps you to be more confident.
Yeah.
And just not doubt so many things, or I guess, more confident in, I guess like you're saying, in yourself and your abilities. So then therefore you're like, well, if I'm confident that I know I'm doing what's right, then, therefore this, that. And so I think that there is a lot of change to it. But perception really is everything, dude. Like literally everything, every morning when I'm like getting up for work, and I've told you this, where I'm like, fuck, I really don't want to get up and go. I'm just like, today's going to be a good day. It'll be fun. It'll be quick. It'll be done. And then I'll be back home again. And, and the positive thinking, I don't really know where negative thinking comes from, but I feel like it's so.
Oh, I can tell you.
Go for it.
It's an evolutionary tactic to help you with survival, right? Because if someone was too optimistic to go over the corner or, I'm not scared of those lions that are on the other side, we would go and just die.
Like self-doubt was almost like a survival thing. Yeah. And I think that a lot of the times, like talking to my clients now who are going through weight loss, like I was telling you the other day and stuff, that I have to kind of remind them that they're no longer in these situations. Like, hey, you're no longer in that situation that caused you to want to kind of eat more, or you're no longer here, or your mom isn't telling you this, or et cetera, or whatever, and we have to kind of remind ourselves that we're sort of in that same situation too. You know what I mean? I don't have to worry about this so much, or I don't have to do this, or whatever it is. And I think that for people with anxiety, or maybe people with like a really intense inner dialogue, all you do is like self-doubt all day, you know, and you just think about, well, what could go wrong? And I think we kind of rationalize it as being prepared, right? As I'm just being prepared for what could happen or whatever. But it's funny because, I'm
already doing that for conversations.
That
I'm gonna have
as a human being, I can come up with 3 different scenarios, like, well, it could go like this, it could go that way, or it could go this way. And it's funny because most of them never happen. You know what I mean? I'm thinking of 3 situations. In reality, there's 800 million. You know what I mean? The person I'm talking to could have slept a little bit less, so now they're more angry, and I can't control those factors. And so trying to constantly predict the future to me almost seems like an exhaustive task. You can never really do it.
Yeah. And then I was sitting in Pluckers and I was like, man, we are more needed than ever before. Right. And it's not just to do with obesity, but this under muscle epidemic that's happening that people are not talking about. So there's now a sizable minority that have high blood pressure, diabetes, cardiovascular risk. And these are people who are quote unquote normal weight.
Yeah.
So what's going on here? It's just the under muscle. And I looked up a statistic. I think it said 21.8% of diabetics are of normal weight.
like
that's a size 1 in 5. That's a sizable.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah, because you see people and you're like, oh, you see people and you think like, oh, they're healthy, right? They're skinny, right? They're not fat, so they must be healthy, right? Or, you know, I was thinking about this too, where we sort of idolize people like bodybuilders, right? And we're like, look at them. They're
huge ribs.
This is peak perfection, you know, like they're so
Diet 45.
helped. Yeah, diet 45. And we praise some things and go, yeah, look at them. And then we like, you know, bash other things where to me, I see someone who's severely overweight and I see someone who's totally cut and works out every single day. And to me, I'm like, they're the same level of extreme, you know, they're the same level of fucked up, you know? And I think that we got to change sort of what is healthy in our minds, you know what I mean? And thinking about this, because you see people and you're like, well, how are you diabetic or how do you have high blood pressure or whatever, you know? And it's like, well, they might be skinny, right? But they also drink 5 Monsters a day and sleep 4 hours, you know? And then in between they're playing video games. And it's like, no wonder they have high fucking blood pressure, you know?
Dude, it's crazy, dude. And then I don't know if I sent you this article, but it talks about a meta-analysis of mental health issues linked to processed foods. Do you think if that we have enough nutrients in our body goes into depression, or the notes were actually for me. So like,
I see what you're saying.
So if we have enough food and nutrients, do you think our body would actually go in depression? Like, no, right?
Because you're saying that depression is almost like a survival state, right? In order to like conserve energy. Yeah. That's kind of insane. I've never thought of it that way, but that is a super interesting opinion or thought to have.
This is my inner dialogue, guys.
Yeah. And I think that at least we can manage some aspects of it, right? Because there have been, you know.
Okay, I have a question. Do you feel like, because we talked about your mental health and stuff like that. Do you feel like since you've been eating better, higher protein, more calories, compared to when you were skinny, that some of your depression is away because you're just more nutrient dense, dense, right? Versus before you didn't have a bunch of nutrients, so your body was conserving. You're tired, you're fatigued, sleepy. Do you feel like that plays a role of your happiness?
I think if it doesn't play an actual physical role, right? If it doesn't play a role as in like it's changing how much vitamins I have or how my brain works or something like that, right? Like let's take that aspect out of it. Now, if I'm eating better, if I'm going to the gym, if I'm sleeping, if I'm whatever, right? If I'm doing those things that are considered healthy, mentally, it helps. I remember when I was super depressed and all that stuff, like the only time I felt happy was like when I was at the gym and like an hour after the gym. Okay. You know, because I felt like I had done something progressive, even though everything else fucking sucked, you know, and that I was improving myself, right? At the very least, beyond anything else, I was improving myself. And so a lot of the times when I'm super stressed out or when I'm, you know, going through whatever it is, I sort of reduce it to the foundations and I'm like, okay, what are the things I can control? I can try and get to the gym this week. I can make sure that I'm not eating fucking McDonald's and crap, right? And I can make sure that I try and at least get 7 hours of sleep. If I can manage at least those things, then I know that I'm doing my best, you know? And so I agree that there has to be something to it where, because, you know, when you are depressed, you don't want to do shit. You know, I don't want to get up and go make food. And then so I just continue this process of, well, I'll just order food or I won't eat, you know, or something.
Or you get a short dopamine hit with eating out a bunch of food that has no nutrients in it. And then it just makes you lazy afterwards because you didn't fill up the body with the body needs. Yeah. Therefore, it's going to conserve energy, right? It goes back into depression.
I'm just perpetuating this cycle, right? Of like, well, nothing is going to get better if I don't try and get better, you know? And that's the last thing you want to hear when you're depressed, right? Because too many people are always like, well, just go to the gym or just do something, you know? And I totally understand if you can't get the fuck up and do it. Yeah, it's super hard, man, you know? And why wouldn't it be, right? Because if you're already going through something that sucks and then your body is like nutrient deprived, how do you even muster up the mental strength to get up and go anywhere, you know?
So let's say you're nutrient deprived and you have anxiety, so it's another stress.
Yeah.
And then your decision a lot of times when you're anxiety is just stay still and just be in a spot.
Lock.
So I wonder if all these like quote unquote negative emotions has to do with conserving energy.
Conserving energy.
I can't even talk today. Conserve energy and really not just about the anxiety or just the depression, but also this is the physical form of it, right? So
it's almost like a manifestation. It's like putting you into a dormant state until the situation is like fixed, you know. And then that's why some people, when they're like finally out of the bad relationship or getting a better job or whatever, then they're like, oh my God, like now I can like breathe and do all this stuff, you know. And then you're like, fuck, my room's a mess. You get up and you're like, shit, you know. But it has to have some part of it, you know.
Yeah, dude. And did you hear that Weight Watchers has partnered with Ozempic? Bro, buy in stock right now.
That's insane.
It just tells you that people are to head this way. It's gonna be Ozempic, Wegovy. The other one.
This is the new answer, right? Like this is the new quick fix.
There's even, I think I just sent it to you not long ago, about women saying, "Oh, I got on Ozempic, I lost weight, and it's because of Ozempic I was able to get pregnant and get rid of my PCOS."
Oh yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, it's not that it's a magical peptide. It's most likely that because you lost weight, you're in a healthier state.
Yeah.
And therefore your fertility goes up.
I was at therapy yesterday and I was talking to my therapist about
whoa. We don't talk about this is between you and your therapist. Go ahead.
And we were talking about guilt, right? Because you know that's something that I struggle with. And I was talking about like one of the aspects of it, and I had texted her over the week, and I was like, "Hey, can we like talk about this the next time?" And she was like, "Oh yeah, it sounds great." So I get there, and you know, she kind of brings it up, and she was like, "What did you want to talk about?" So I kind of went on to it, and I was like, "But honestly, I don't actually want to talk about that." And I was like, because at the end of the day, all I'm doing is treating a symptom. And I was like, I want to find out why I feel guilty. That's the problem, right? That's the thing. And this is just another one of those aspects where we treat symptoms, right? Or we look at the symptom and how it's relieved, and then we're like, oh, that means the problem is fixed. Yeah. Right. So in this case, it's like this woman is like, well, Ozempic made me be able to have children again. Right. And it's like, okay, let's break it down one step below that, right? What was causing you to not have children in the first place? Being overweight, right? Okay, well, that's, you know, and then you take it back and back and back, and then finally you're like, oh, it wasn't Ozempic that fixed it. It's because I lost weight, you know? And I think that we try or not we, right? But people try and sell things, you know, like keto or whatever it is. And we're selling a fix for a symptom and not the actual problem.
Yeah, there's stuff that I have to tell you off air, but me and Amanda were talking about how like people justify their actions very well. Yeah. Even though, let's say they had this action, but they're still doing this, and you're just like, well, that's what you're afraid of, but you're willing to do it over here, but you can't do it over here. Yeah. But you're justifying it, right? And we're just really good at just making anything seem true, right? Yeah. So I could pick a religion. This is true. I could pick that murdering people is actually a good thing, and I can make it true in my head, because we can make anything real versus finding kind of what's like the human truths, right? Yeah. Like I could lie to myself and be like, look, I'm consistent like 90% of the time and I'm not losing weight, and I know people who do that.
Yeah, because we get it all the time, right?
But I tell them get blood work and everything. Like my blood work was like completely well. Obviously, it was the testosterone, right? Like in my case. But I put in all the other work to figure out what it really was.
Right, what was the actual
where
problem?
Someone else is like, they go straight to the testosterone. I have no problem, but you still got to fix everything. Even with Ozempic, what happens when you go off? What happens when you're going to have this kid? Are you taking Ozempic while having the baby? You're going to go right back to your habits. And right now you're saying you got pregnant, but what is the future going to hold? Because you're not going to be on Ozempic while breastfeeding.
Yeah, because what happens then, right? So let's say you are pregnant, and then your doctor is like, okay, well, you know, I'm going to take you off Ozempic during the pregnancy. Well, you're probably going to gain all the weight back, and then the pregnancy becomes dangerous. Yeah. You know, and it's like, it helped you, I guess, get to one part, but there's still all this other aspects that didn't get fixed, you know?
It makes me think about the fitness industry and everybody going to a bodybuilding show. Everybody talks about before the bodybuilding show and the show happening, but they never talk about what happens after.
Yeah, it's like,
and how do I want to get
like,
back?
Yay. Yeah, like I would love to see Sebum or someone, you know, do a, you know,
this is how I reverse diet.
6 week, after post show. This is what I did, you know, and explain to us how hard it is.
That's or guy, by the way.
Sebum, fuck yeah, dude. He's probably, you know, our generation's best bodybuilder, but it's insane, man. Yeah. I'm gonna grow a mustache like him.
I already got it.
Yeah. We should do it, bro. We should do it.
Stupid. Amanda would never talk to me
For
again.
Movember, bro. We should do it.
Stupid. So this next one, a Harvard professor says,
oh yeah,
meat is a necessity. From a Harvard professor.
Yeah, if you guys like your whole Ivy League people. Yeah, and it was they were talking about how I don't want to say it was against veganism, right? But they were saying that humans need animal protein in order to function properly, you know? And we know this. This is known. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When we started eating animals and gotten better at it, you would actually see an evolutionary history. The brain grows.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like we were made to consume both, right? Not just animals, not just vegetables or whatever it is, right? Both. And they both play a purpose. And I think it's dumb to do either one only. You know what I mean? Because then you take away a whole aspect of what we were made to consume, you know, and immediately take it out. And it's crazy because I don't understand how people sometimes are like, this is the way you're supposed to be. Like, you're supposed to only eat vegetables or only eat this or whatever. And it's like, no, you know, we were literally made to eat both things. So we should probably do that. You know, there's a reason why. If we were meant to only eat meat, then we would only eat meat, but we don't, you know?
Yeah, man. I just think you got to do what's best for you. Some people are on more the vegan side. Some people more on the meat eater side. It depends.
Yeah.
Like my underwear. By the depends. I was kidding.
Whoa.
Whoa.
He's shitting right now.
So I put this one on here. We'll end on this one. Then we'll go to Reddit finds. Did you know 0% of rape is by men?
Yeah.
And I really want to point this out because it just shows how much we really manipulate numbers.
Yeah. Today, and also how we manipulate language. Yes. I think that's another thing. Today I saw this meme, or I guess it was a meme, but it was a photograph of an actual ad. And the ad was like on a college campus, and it was like a girl in the sky, and they were like drinking at a party. And at the top it said, you know, whatever.
Oh, I remember
it
this
said
one,
like, Dave is drunk, Angela is drunk. You know, they had sex, but Angela wasn't able to consent to it. So that's like sexual assault. Like, you know, blah, 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 whatever. And I was like, what about the guy? Yeah, Dave was also drunk. You know what I mean? And it's like, what if it was the other way? You know, or I don't know. I guess then it comes to the part where it's like, well, what is, you know, consenting if you're drunk or whatever it is. But regardless, though, in this article, they were talking about how rape is defined as, or I guess at least in this research, rape was defined as penetration by a penis, right? That's like what it said. And it was like, in that case, a woman can never be accused of this. Yeah. You know, like literally never ever.
Yeah. That's crazy when you hear stories about guys being drugged and they can't do anything, but they're hard, and there's like these older women taking advantage of them.
Yeah, and it's also the thing where everybody's like, well, he wouldn't have gotten hard if he didn't want it, you know, and it's like, excuse me? Like, you know, what if someone said that the opposite way? You know, everybody would be like, oh, that's not how it works, and blah, blah. And I think that there's also just I'm also realizing how much women don't understand about like dicks, you know, and like how it works too. Like I've learned over time that
there's blood. Yeah.
I this is just my opinion. I think that guys probably know more about vaginas because I think that we're so like worried about it that you'll look into stuff. Or
I'll
like
disagree with that. I think we both evenly do not know about each other's pieces.
That's fair. Yeah. And I think that more research has to be done because, I mean, or not research, but like more individual looking things up or asking questions or whatever it is needs to be done. Because sometimes like I'll hear things and I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about?
You're just supposed to get hard like that.
Yeah. Or I remember I saw on Reddit one time that this girl was like, I was so surprised because I saw my boyfriend pee for the first time and he did it without getting hard. And everybody was like, huh? And she was like, yeah, aren't you like, don't you get hard when you pee? And everybody's like, no. It's just like,
yeah. I mean, you don't grow up with that piece. So you're just like,
yeah, which is fair, right? Yeah, you don't know. And then it's like, if your parents or anything, you know, like our probably a whole generation of parents were, they're not going to talk about that stuff. Oh, yeah. You know, yeah. So then you just go into it all blind and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Dude, I was like having a talk with Amanda. She was like, when's the first time you masturbated and stuff like that? I went back through all that stuff. I was like, fuck, like I didn't know what I was doing. And then just like, oh man, this felt good.
Yeah.
Right? Like
I saw this post and it was like, this guy was like, I used to think that the word jerking off and masturbating meant two different things.
wow.
And he was like, so I went to church one time and they were talking about how masturbation is a bad thing. And that I was sitting there and I was like, well, good thing I only jerk off. It was funny. It's funny. You know what I mean? It's the same thing where you're like, I didn't even know. I was just doing whatever. You know?
Dude. But go back to the rape thing and just like, we talked about how like even it's hard to have relationships because our partners interpret and manipulate our words, not on purpose.
Right. Yeah.
But it happens. Like you could tell them one thing and they hear something else. And
I'm
like,
sure we do the same thing.
We do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what makes relationships so hard. And going back to where we're talking about, like, you know, where the inner dialogue and like being yourself, like you don't realize how much you interpret things, even though it's being said one way and that's what it's meant to be.
Yeah, everything goes through your mental filter, right?
And it's just crazy. All right, let's go into Reddit finds. And in Reddit finds, we just got one. But I like to tell people I pee in the shower.
Yeah,
dude, that was so funny, dude.
Yeah, there's this other.
What do you mean you pee in the shower?
So there's this podcast. It's called Therapy Gecko, and it's this guy, and he just like dresses up like a lizard and has people call in and like they talk about random silly stuff. Sometimes it's serious, sometimes it's dumb like this. And this guy was saying that he only ever pees in the shower, and even at like friends' houses, stuff like that, like he only pisses in the shower.
Dude, if you came into my house and pissed in my shower, I'm gonna fucking murder you.
And he was like, honestly, I think it's a good thing because like I'm saving water, you know. And they were like, well, damn it, you know, I can't really disagree.
Yeah.
And I looked at the end when he was like, now do you shit in the shower? And he was like, no. I was like, that's gross. You love shit in the shower, bro.
All the time. Then you got to squish it down there.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be so disgusting. Oh, dude. I'm going to throw up on camera here. All right, we got two studies. The first study is women need less time than men to get benefits from strength training. So in 1 in 5 of the participants, that was over 400,000 in the study, did previous strength training. So when doing strength training done, 30% of a lower mortality rate was due to cardiovascular disease when they actually straight train twice a week. So they said women needed less time, and I believe it was like 2 hours versus like 3 hours.
That's crazy because we had one similar to this the other day, and it makes me think this, like, it makes me wonder if it's because generally, you know, throughout life and history and everything, women did less manual labor type work. You know what I mean? Men have...
Bro, feminists are about to go after you. That's going to get clipped. Women did less.
Yeah, that's all it's going to say. That guy's going to come up and be like, Nathaniel said that.
Women said less. Yeah. Women
and also,
less.
Tim raises help your knees. He said that too. But like...
I know historically
right,
evolutionary wise.
So it's like, I wonder if we just need more stimulus to elicit any change, right? As opposed to women, or as opposed to an untrained individual, right? Like,
so I think it comes more to that. I think women tend to be more untrained,
right?
Because they were less likely in physical activity versus the male participants that they would get are probably trained somewhat. Yeah. Because I feel like the more untrained you are, the bigger your responses.
Because even if you didn't go to the gym, right? Mm-hmm. Even if you never went to the gym as a child, like I bet if I took a brother and a sister, right? Like their upbringing is going to be completely different, even though they're in the same house. You know, I'm sure the boy is going to be out working on the car with dad, or doing whatever, or climbing the tree, or
cutting the lawn,
right? Yeah, just doing manual labor, whereas the girl might do completely different, or vice versa, whatever it is, right? But it's going to end up being that one of them is probably going to be more of a trained individual, right? Just from doing work as a child or through life than the other, you know? And then it just comes down to this where it's like, well, yeah, of course, someone who's untrained is going to get a lot from a little bit.
Yeah. All right. So this next study, I was laughing a lot. The headline was, a healthier diet is linked with slower pace of aging, reduced dementia risk. That's what the study shows. No shit. You eat better. You're most likely to work out. You're more likely to sleep better. You care about your health. There's like other factors. Yeah. And it just made me laugh overall.
That's funny. Yeah.
And I think we have studies like this that want to like separate, like we talked about at the beginning, like, oh, it's only because this
Yeah.
Right. And it's a very global kind of thing.
I wonder what diet they use as well. Like what is a healthier diet, as
it's like controlled in calories and protein and stuff like that.
At least they weren't trying to sell something. Weight Watchers.
Weight Watchers on Ozempic. Dude, you got to buy stock right now.
Yeah, I'm about to, bro.
About to buy
right
it.
after this.
Right after this. Oh, shit. It's already $100 per stock.
Fuck.
Yeah. All right, guys. If you like what we're doing, please share, like, subscribe. We're on Apple and Spotify. You can rate and review us. We're on YouTube. You can subscribe down below. Please comment. Also, check out our workout videos. We've helped a couple people. Then we have our website, ssempowered.com. We have free blogs and guides and programs on there for purchase. Then if you want to email us future fitness questions, it's strengthsolutionsempowered@gmail.com. Social media, Facebook, Strength Solutions, TikTok, which is being banned, strength.solutions.pod, and Instagram, Strength Solutions Empowered. I'm Strength Solutions Edwin.
I'm Strength Solutions Nathaniel.
All right, let's get ready for this first fitness question. So what are exercises do you see people perform that people use for the wrong intent? So I already wrote a note.
Yes, yeah, I see.
My note is renegade rows. So a lot of people try to like overload it and just try to row the as much as possible when it's not really for your back, but it's more for your core and stabilizing that core.
I got
anti-rotation.
10 pounds on this, dude. Like if you're trying to do a renegade row right, it's super hard. Another one that I think, I guess it has two purposes, right? But mountain climbers. Mountain climbers are a big one for me because I think that a lot of people get down, they get in a mountain climber and they're going, bah, 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 right, trying to go as fast as they can. Their back is moving all crazy and their hips are opening side to side. When I have my clients do mountain climbers, I'm like, look, we're going to do them a little bit different than you probably normally see, right? Like we're going to get into a plank, right? Hold that position. Then you're going to drive that knee in back, right? Without the hips moving, without the back collapsing, and it's like, I guess it's sort of the intent of the exercise, but I think a lot of people see mountain climbers, they're like, oh, that's core exercise. And then you go and you're just like out of breath. And I'm like, did you do any core work?
No, or like bear crawls, same concept.
Yeah. All of these, like, I think a lot of it is like core exercises because a lot of people sort of mix those up. It's
because we have that mentality of doing 50 reps is a good core exercise when in reality sometimes it's 10 reps.
10, 12 done properly. You know what I mean?
Sometimes
like,
you only get 5.
Yeah. Like I'll tell people all the time, so like pull-ups, push-ups, right? And sit-ups, I think are 3 of the hardest exercises to do right. A pull-up is super hard because you're pulling up your own body weight, push-up as well. And then to actually do a sit-up properly, without the legs lifting or coming, arching in the back or slapping it down to get yourself up again, whatever, it's damn near impossible.
Like controlling.
Yeah, a sit-up is super hard to do without assistance, right? Without someone holding your foot down or whatever it is.
Getting the hip flexors more involved.
Yeah, and so I would say primarily it's core exercises I see people doing for the wrong intent.
All right, question number 2. I need help with a seated cable row. If I feel my traps and really can't feel my rhomboids, what are some cues to help, and what am I doing wrong?
That's a good one.
You're probably leading with your hands mostly. Yeah. That's probably number one thing. Big cue is to scrape the elbows on the ground that I like to use to keep the traps down.
Oh, that's good.
Right? So if you scrape the elbow down, it's going
to pull
your shoulders down. That's probably a big cue. 2, keep your core engaged, right? A lot of times when we don't keep our core engaged, we tend to like flop over and then you pick up your shoulder, or you round and then you pull over the top, right? A lot of people do that on the lat pull down. So I would say scrape the elbows would be one. Loosen up the grip of the hands is another one.
Oh, yeah.
And then depending on how your cervical spine is, I would give you eye cueing. I think like that's a missing link I have found. And the strength of the eye, how you rotate your face, your cervical spine, how it controls. And if you're not shifted in the right spot, you can tend to kind of pull one shoulder over the other.
Yeah, like some people, will kind of be in a position with the head tilt, right? And they're pulling through. And of course, that's going to pull you in sort of this position to kind of squeeze through the trap, right? A lot of the times, that this isn't as good. I do like that elbow scraping the ground, but I'll tell people to pull down and back, and I'll kind of create like a V, like on their back. And I'm like, think about having a V on there and follow the line down and back, right, as you pull towards the spine over. I do, or honestly, I'll just go, when someone's doing a row and I'll like tap their traps and like rely, like put these down, you know?
Yeah.
And immediately they're like blank and they're like, oh, I didn't even know I was doing that, you know?
I like to scrape the elbows because it's something I don't have to touch them.
It's visual. It's
if you touch them all the time, then they're not going to be able to cue it when they're on their own.
Yeah.
And then I like the idea of the V because that's the lower and mid trap, and that pulls the shoulder down.
That's what you should be working, right? I think a lot of people, so that's another cue that I would probably give is try and get more connected with that lower trap, because I think when people think shoulder blades, they tend to come back, right? Like when they're squeezing back, they come all the way through and up, right? They come up and back. And when it really should be down and back. And so trying to get that lower trap engagement. I would even play with maybe hand positioning.
Yeah.
You know, if you're in the V grip and you feel like you're pulling up this way, then go to that bottom grip, right, and pull back and through and learn how to get it there, and then kind of go back to the other ones.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes down to your thoracic spine and can you feel the rhomboids?
Yeah, that's can they even retract? You know, like that's another whole thing.
Then maybe you need to do some W, some external rotation. Maybe it's your ribs. You never know until like you do a bunch of
maybe you have too much weight on the rack.
Cool. Yeah. I like to start people sometimes off with a banded row if they can't do a cable row because it's only hardest at the back end.
Yeah.
And so that way it allows you to pull through a little bit of a smoother range of motion. Next question. What are things that are considered healthy but are actually not?
Ooh. Hey, that was mine. I made it on the podcast.
He made it. Actually, a Reddit person made it.
Damn it. Edwin, don't say that.
Don't say that. So it was a good question you saw on Reddit, right?
Yeah.
And I think like they were saying things like granola and stuff like that. Like those are the usual suspects. I'm here to say nuts.
Yeah.
And seeds. They're healthy. Don't get me wrong.
They are.
But they're also very calorically dense.
Yeah.
And the number one rule, and I feel like this is the number one rule with health markers, is if I could get you close to normal weight, especially if you're obese, calories matter. Right? And then avocado. Too much avocado, right? If you ever measure out an avocado, you see how many calories it is. Like right away.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, and we're not saying like vegetables make you fat or whatever it is, right? Because a lot of people will do that.
Or nuts and seeds make you fat.
Yeah,
it's the portion sizes.
It's the portion sizes, and I think that it's because of that, the portion sizes become so large because people are misinformed, right? Like I had a client who, dude, oh man,
scoops of peanut butter.
This guy just loved like tree nuts, man, and he was like, I remember asking him, I was like, how much do you eat? And he was like, oh, I eat like, you know, throughout the day, I'll probably have like 10 handfuls. And I'm like, excuse me? Like what? Like, damn, that's probably a lot of calories that you're putting in that you don't even realize, you know? And he's like, well, isn't it a good source of protein? And I'm like, no, it's actually more of a source of fat, right? And this goes into so I think that we need to be careful because marketing is marketing and they're doing a good job with it, that there's too many quote unquote high protein foods or good source of protein foods.
Or like when people were like, me and Amanda saw like a protein Snickers bar.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's just a Snicker bar with a little bit extra protein.
Yeah. And there's too many things out there, you know, and it's funny because I see it. So like my daughter, right? Like she obviously knows a lot of the stuff that I do or what I talk about and everything. And so we'll go to the store and she's like, oh, is this a good source of protein? And because it says on there, you know, it says,
great.
Yeah. And I'm like, no, corn dogs are not a good source of protein, you know? And it's hard for her to understand because she's like, but why? Like it says on the, you know, and I'm like, honestly, I know she's 8 and whatever, but like, that's probably a lot of the way that most of the population thinks, you know, I see it and I go, oh, easy. I can just grab that and go take it. And it said, you know, why do I have to believe that it's wrong? And a lot of people don't really understand like nutrition facts or how to read the back of a box or whatever it is. And so that's like one of the things that I would say.
Or how much off a box can be.
Or it's like 20. They allow like 20% off. You know what I mean?
So think about it. You have 100 calories. You're off 20%. It's 120 calories. Right? Let's say now you have 4 of those items. Now you're at 480 versus 400. 80 calories extra. And it gets multiplied throughout the year. Yeah. And so I think that you really have to be careful with stuff like that because too many things everything's fucking healthy now, apparently, you know. Even your mom.
Yeah.
Your mom made all the podcast. Oh, dude. She's going to kill me. All right. Last question. I just got my personal training certification. What should I do? Should I do online, a small gym, or a corporate gym?
Oh, interesting.
What should I do?
Yeah.
Okay. I could tell you. Started a corporate gym.
Yeah, you got to get yourself in front of people.
So I think that's the biggest thing, right? I think the biggest mistake is, unless like the gym you're at where they get you people,
Yeah.
Or a corporate gym, you have to make mistakes.
Yeah.
I started at a small gym. It's just a lot harder.
Yeah.
Now, I do think I have a special personality where like I'm going to grind the fuck out. Like I'm just going to figure it out.
And some people might not, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay. But I think that you need to recognize that. And I think you need to start where you need to start. Because like you said, number one, you're going to make mistakes. It's like any other job. You know what I mean? The first months that you do, the first year really are going to be all sorts of fucked up, you know? And you need to get in front of people. You need to get experience and you need to learn application. And those are the things that are most important. And, you know, small gyms are probably where you will make the most money. You know, but it's going to be the most difficult, and it's not going to,
years.
Yeah. And it's not going to be as, forgiving.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Cause also small gyms, you have to understand that like reputation is a thing, right? So like you start getting a bad reputation, well, no one's going to want to work with you, you know, whereas at a corporate gym, you know, and maybe this is,
they do all the marketing selling for you.
Yeah. And you're just kind of another face, right? There's a little bit of like leeway in it. And maybe this is bad advice, right? But I'm not saying be unethical, but I'm just saying get experience, right? And you're just not really going to get it at a small gym.
Yeah, you're not going to know what you're going to do at the beginning.
Yeah, you won't, and that's okay, you know. And I think online is more of a later on option, like maybe end
you
game.
definitely do not start there.
Yeah, like end game, quote unquote, or it's like something that you do in addition to. I think that you have to manage that really well. Like if you are going to do the online and in-person training, that's difficult. But that is definitely not the starting point. I would just go get in front of people as quick as possible, start getting clients, start learning. And that's, you know, that's probably going to be the corporate gym.
Yeah. If you start online too, there's a lot of coaching cues you're not going to understand. You're never going to see your client. They're going to send you a video. You're not going to know what to do.
Yeah.
Because you haven't worked with people physically. You haven't seen how people react physically. Starting in person in a corporate setting too, I don't think you realize how much marketing and money goes into like Lifetime, Gold, all these companies.
Like you,
and how many people you can choose from.
And yeah, how many people you could choose
10,
from?
10,000 maybe in a gym.
How many locations you could choose from. And just to speak to the marketing, I can say Gold's Gym, and everybody knows exactly what the hell I'm talking about.
Yep.
They know where it's at. They know which one is around them. They know, you know, the marketing is done. I don't have to go out and market myself. Gold's Gym did that for itself, and I just worked there.
Yeah. And yeah, you're going to get less money at the beginning, but I think people have forgot about like internships and like how it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
Get experience to me is the most important thing.
Yeah.
You're not going to be there from day one. Like I helped you a little bit.
Yeah.
I've helped another young trainer, and then another one after that. And I can help them, but you could tell like they're starting to learn, like they just need the experience too. So I can help them further.
Right.
And so the more people you get in front of, the more you can actually help people versus like I did. I started in a small gym. It took me a while to get comfortable too. And if you're a new trainer, just start at a corporate place. It's just going to make it so much easier. All right, guys, if you like what we're doing, please find us on Apple and Spotify. You can rate and review us. We are also on YouTube. Please subscribe. Also, comment down below. Feel free to reach out. Then we have our website, ssempowered.com. We have free blogs, free guides, and programs on there for purchase. So we have a blog and guide coming out each month. So we have each of those. Email us at strengthsolutionsempowered@gmail.com. We have our social media, Facebook, Strength Solutions, TikTok, strength.solutions.pod, Instagram, Strength Solutions Empowered. I'm Strength Solutions Edwin.
I'm Strength Solutions Nathaniel.
Until next time, guys, what?